Alright, so for this week's video journal, talking about topics in the modules for accounting and finance, this week the topic I chose was tangible versus intangible assets, and we'll get into that. So just kind of identifying what the topic is here for this week. Intangible and tangible assets are both categories you put assets into, and understanding how to categorize your assets is very crucial for accounting because different assets are accounted differently in balance sheets and in financial statements. And we'll kind of get into the definitions for those two terms later. But just to also explain what an asset is just something a company owns that has a specific value attached to it. It's a very key concept for business just in general. And this is very important just because for accounting future actions, knowing which assets are which will help you know how to place those assets in your balance sheets and how to do accounting for them. So kind of just going to the explanation of the assets, I got a couple references here from the SkyPack module. So for tangible assets, an asset is considered a tangible asset when it is an economic resource, has physical substance. It can be seen and touched. Tangible assets can be either short-term, such as inventory and supplies, or long-term, such as land, buildings, and equipment. So kind of just going back over that. It's like a physical object. You purchase land, you can go to the land and touch it, obviously. Examples of like short-term versus long-term physical assets. Like a computer can last a while, for instance, whereas maybe a more short-term asset would be like office supplies, like staples. You'll run out of staples. Depending on how much you staple, you'll run out of staples pretty fast, for instance. So those are some examples of physical objects that a business purchases that have value to the business. So if you can see and touch it, most likely a tangible asset. Now moving on to intangible assets, they don't have a physical substance. And from SkyPack, examples of intangible assets are patents, copyrights, franchises, licenses, goodwill, sometimes software and trademarks. Because the value of intangible assets is very subjective, it is usually not shown on the balance sheet until there is an event that indicates value objectively, such as the purchase of an intangible asset. We'll get to that last part about the balance sheet stuff later. But for now, kind of just going over some of these examples from the SkyPack. When it says goodwill, obviously it's not referring to the store goodwill. It's not talking about thrift shopping. It's talking about just the goodwill you have with your customer base, just like good rapport, kind of public reception in a lot of ways, and just a lot of that positive interactions and feelings you have with other maybe customers or other businesses. And then patents and copyrights. Copyright is like we have some literature or artistic work, and you own that copyright to that literature or artistic work. Like, Disney has like Peter Pan copyrighted, like the movie Peter Pan is under their umbrella because they own it and made it, and so it's like copyrighted. So those are just some examples of intangible assets, and basically just the key thing, they're the opposite of tangible assets. They do not have a physical substance. You can't touch them. So just why does this matter? Might be a question you're thinking. How do I use this information? Well, kind of going mainly with what you saw with the second half of that last chunk here. Um, so just knowing the difference, why that matters is because intangible assets are not shown on the balance sheet unless an event occurs. So just like purchasing intangible assets. So just like if you know the difference, like if you know it's a tangible asset, then you know like you also guys understand that kind of going here, what the useful life is, and like does it depreciate and stuff. Like if a business buys a car, you identify that that's a tangible asset, and so therefore it has a useful life and it can depreciate. And so in your accounting, you would put like depreciation expense on like the right side of the T chart, for instance, and you have like the value of the car when you bought on the left, then it keeps depreciating each year and stuff like that. So that's just a key thing for like accounting, for like knowing how you put them in your books. To do that, you need to be able to differentiate between tangible and intangible assets. So going to the ethics of this, it's not necessarily something you think instantly like, oh, this is an ethical issue, but accounts in general, this is just about like being good at your job and how it's like ethically important as like being a good citizen, just doing your due diligence and categorizing things correctly without purposely discategorizing for maybe bad intentions. And kind of going back to like the hard work aspect. Here's a Bible verse, one of my favorites. Colossians 3:23, ESV version. Whatever you do, work hardly as for the Lord and not for men. So basically just work hard, because working hard is glorifying God in a lot of ways. So just do work that's glorifying God, even in your accounting. And here's the references, and thanks for watching.